Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us in this really important debate on one of the most profound and enduring questions in human history. Does God actually exist? I truly believe that the answer to this question is, without a doubt, yes. And I'm going to present several arguments to support this position.
Thank you, Alex. While I respect your perspective, I must begin by asserting that I believe there is no evidence supporting the existence of God. This question deserves serious examination, but I do not believe that God's existence is a necessary conclusion.
Let's take a moment to consider the cosmological argument. The very fact that we exist and that the universe exists really demands some kind of explanation. The universe had a beginning, and something must have caused it to come into being. Whatever that cause is, it must be timeless, immaterial, and powerful enough to create everything we see around us. This, I would argue, is most logically and reasonably explained by the existence of a creator, a God.
I understand your point, but the Big Bang Theory provides a scientific explanation for the origin of the universe. It suggests that the universe began from a singularity, not necessarily requiring an external cause. We don't need a divine being to explain the origins of the cosmos.
While the Big Bang Theory does a great job of explaining the how of the universe's origin, it doesn't really address the why the universe exists with such incredible precision. This brings us to the teleological argument, often referred to as the argument from design. The universe's fine-tuning for life, the exact conditions needed for life to exist and thrive, is so unbelievably specific that the chances of it happening purely by chance are astronomically low. This extraordinary fine-tuning, I would argue, strongly points to the existence of an intelligent designer.
Let's not confuse coincidence with design. The anthropic principle explains that the universe's conditions are simply suited for life because we, as humans, exist to observe it. The fact that the universe appears to be finely tuned is more of a reflection of our perspective than of purposeful design. Life adapted to the conditions of the universe, not the other way around.
I see your point, but the complexity of life, the way physical laws and constants appear to be perfectly suited for life to emerge, strongly suggests some form of intentionality. In fact, even Richard Dawkins, a well-known atheist, has admitted that the universe seems almost as if it had been designed for life. This acknowledgement, coming from someone who is deeply skeptical of the idea of a creator, lends significant weight to the argument that the universe's design is not just a random occurrence.
Even if the universe seems designed, it doesn't necessarily follow that a deity is behind it. Nature, through natural processes like evolution, explains the development of life without requiring a supernatural agent. The theory of evolution offers a more coherent and scientifically supported explanation for the complexity of life.
I agree that evolution explains biological diversity, but evolution itself does not answer the deeper existential questions: why there is something rather than nothing, or why we possess a moral compass. This brings me to the moral argument. Humans possess an inherent sense of right and wrong. If there were no higher being to set moral standards, morality would be entirely subjective. The existence of universal moral principles, like the idea that murder is wrong, suggests the presence of a moral lawgiver, a God.
While I acknowledge that humans have a sense of morality, I argue that morality can evolve from social contracts and cultural evolution. Ethical principles exist because they promote cooperation and social stability. We don't need God to explain morality. Human societies have developed these concepts over time based on shared human experiences.
Even if morality evolved socially, that still doesn't explain the objective nature of morality. Why do we feel that certain actions, like murder or theft, are universally wrong, even in cultures that have no contact with each other? That moral compass points beyond human society and towards something transcendent.
Once again, I must point out that the idea of objective morality is not universally accepted. Ethical relativism exists, and different cultures have different moral frameworks. The concept of right and wrong can be explained through evolution and cultural development without needing a divine being.
However, if morality is just a social construct, then there would be no way to objectively claim that any action is truly right or wrong. A universal moral lawgiver provides a consistent and binding standard for moral actions, something that we see across human history and societies.
While I appreciate your arguments, the absence of empirical evidence for God's existence cannot be overlooked. Until we find verifiable evidence, we cannot justify belief in God. Faith may be important for some, but belief without evidence remains speculative and irrational.
Belief in God is not based solely on empirical evidence, but on a combination of reason, faith, and experience. Science explains the how, but religion addresses the deeper questions of purpose and meaning. The two can coexist, and in fact, science often supports the philosophical arguments for the existence of a creator.
Perhaps science and religion can coexist, but science offers a more reliable path to understanding the world around us. Until God's existence can be demonstrated in a way that meets rigorous standards of proof, skepticism remains the rational stance.
You mentioned the Big Bang Theory as a sufficient explanation for the universe's origin. However, the Big Bang itself requires a cause. Science tells us that every effect has a cause, so what initiated the Big Bang? A timeless, immaterial, and immensely powerful cause fits the description of what many call God.
The question of what caused the Big Bang is indeed an open one, but invoking God as the answer simply shifts the problem. Who or what created God? If you argue that God is eternal and uncaused, why can't the universe or the conditions that led to the Big Bang be eternal and uncaused instead?
That's a valid question, but an eternal universe is contradicted by scientific evidence. The universe is expanding, and its expansion traces back to a singular beginning. Unlike the universe, God is not a material entity confined by space and time, so the question of his creation does not apply.
Even if we accept that the universe had a beginning, that doesn't prove the existence of a personal God. It could be a natural process we don't yet understand. Assuming a divine creator introduces more questions than it answers.
On the subject of fine-tuning, you argued that the universe appears designed only because we exist to observe it, citing the anthropic principle. But this doesn't address why the universe's constants are so precise. The odds of this occurring by chance are infinitesimally small, suggesting intentionality behind the design.
Improbable events happen all the time without design. Consider a lottery winner. The chances of one specific person winning are tiny, but someone always wins. The universe's conditions could simply be one such winner among countless possibilities, especially if there are multiple universes as proposed by the multiverse theory.
The multiverse theory is speculative and lacks empirical evidence. Even if multiple universes exist, it raises another question. What created or governs the multiverse? The concept of a designer still remains a more plausible explanation for the precision we observe.
Not necessarily. Proposing a multiverse is no less plausible than proposing an unobservable God. Both are theoretical, but the multiverse is grounded in physics, whereas a divine being is a philosophical or theological concept.
Regarding morality, you suggested that it evolves from social contracts and cultural evolution. But how do we account for universal moral principles, like the belief that murder is wrong, found across all cultures? These principles seem to transcend human invention.
Universal morality isn't as universal as it seems. Different societies have different interpretations of right and wrong. For example, practices like human sacrifice were considered moral in some cultures. Morality is shaped by environment and survival needs, not by divine law.
Even if some moral standards vary, the underlying recognition of morality's existence remains. People universally distinguish between good and evil, and this moral awareness points to an objective standard beyond humanity, a divine moral lawgiver.
The recognition of good and evil doesn't require divine origin. It can be explained as a product of evolution. Cooperation and altruism provided survival advantages, and over time, these behaviors became encoded in our psychology as moral instincts.
Finally, you emphasized the lack of empirical evidence for God. But God's existence isn't necessarily something that can be measured in a lab. Concepts like love, beauty, and purpose also lack empirical proof, yet are deeply meaningful. God's existence is discerned through reason, experience, and the evidence of creation.
While love, beauty, and purpose are indeed meaningful, they are subjective human experiences. Equating them with evidence for God conflates emotional significance with objective truth. Without verifiable evidence, belief in God remains a matter of personal faith, not universal fact.
Faith and reason are not mutually exclusive. The evidence from cosmology, fine-tuning, and morality builds a cumulative case for God's existence. Faith complements what reason begins to uncover, offering answers to life's ultimate questions.
Reason, however, is most effective when guided by empirical evidence. Until such evidence exists for God, the most rational position is to remain skeptical and continue seeking answers through science and observation.
You argued that invoking God shifts the problem to who created God. But this misunderstands the nature of God as defined in classical theism. God is an uncaused, necessary being, the ultimate explanation for everything. Science, while powerful, only explores the contingent aspects of reality, not the foundational cause.
Labeling God as an uncaused being doesn't solve the problem. It bypasses it. If we can accept an uncaused God, why not accept the universe itself as uncaused? Why complicate the explanation by adding a deity whose existence cannot be demonstrated?
Because the universe shows clear signs of contingency. It depends on external factors for its existence and had a beginning. God, by contrast, is posited as a necessary being, one whose existence is self-explanatory. This provides a simpler and more comprehensive explanation.
A simpler explanation would be to admit we don't know the full story yet, rather than assigning the unknown to God. History shows that invoking God to explain natural phenomena often fails as science advances. Lightning was once attributed to deities. Now we know it's electrical discharge.
You also mentioned the multiverse theory as an alternative to design. But the multiverse is entirely speculative and lacks empirical evidence. It's a hypothesis created to avoid the implications of fine-tuning. A designer, on the other hand, directly accounts for the precision we observe.
The multiverse theory is grounded in mathematical models and theoretical physics. While we lack direct evidence, it's a natural extrapolation of scientific principles. The idea of a designer, however, is based on philosophical speculation, not scientific observation.
But even if the multiverse exists, it doesn't eliminate the need for a cause or explanation. Who or what created the multiverse? The argument for a designer still applies, as something must have initiated the existence of even multiple universes.
That assumes the multiverse needs a cause. In physics, some models suggest the multiverse could exist eternally without a beginning. While we don't have definitive answers, invoking a deity doesn't provide more clarity. It just adds complexity without evidence.
On morality, you argued that ethical principles evolved socially, yet you also acknowledged universal values like cooperation and altruism. These suggest an objective moral standard. If morality were purely subjective, societal disagreements about right and wrong would carry no weight.
Not necessarily. Universal values like cooperation exist because they promote survival. Societies develop these principles out of necessity, not because of an external moral lawgiver. The fact that morals evolve and vary across cultures supports this.
Yet, there are moral principles, like the wrongness of murder or oppression, that persist across time and cultures. Evolution alone struggles to explain why humans feel morally compelled to act altruistically, even at personal cost. This points to a transcendent source of morality.
Altruism and moral instincts are explained by evolutionary biology. Reciprocal altruism ensures mutual benefit, and acts of sacrifice strengthen group survival. These principles don't need a divine origin. They emerge naturally from social living.
Finally, you argue that belief in God lacks empirical evidence, yet much of our reality, such as consciousness, beauty, and even the laws of logic, cannot be fully explained by science. Why should God's existence be held to a higher standard of evidence than these?
Because the existence of God makes a specific claim about reality, that a supernatural, intelligent being created and governs the universe. This claim requires strong evidence, not appeals to subjective experiences like beauty or consciousness, which can be explained through natural processes.
Yet these natural processes themselves rely on order and intelligibility. The universe operates on consistent laws, suggesting a rational mind behind them. Without God, how do you explain the existence of these laws or the universe's rational structure?
Science explains these laws as properties of the universe itself. They don't require an external mind. The universe appears rational because we, as rational beings, impose order on it. The laws of nature are descriptions, not prescriptions from a divine source.
Still, descriptions imply something describable, an underlying reality that follows consistent principles. This coherence suggests purpose and design, aligning with the existence of a creator.
Or it simply reflects the way reality is. Introducing God to explain this coherence raises more questions than it answers. Until evidence supports the existence of a deity, the naturalistic explanation remains the most parsimonious.
In conclusion, The evidence from cosmology, fine-tuning, and morality builds a compelling case for the existence of God. The universe had a beginning, and its precise conditions for life point to a purposeful creator. While science seeks to understand the mechanisms of existence, it does not negate the necessity of a cause beyond space and time, one that aligns with the concept of God. Belief in God provides meaning, purpose, and a foundation for morality, addressing life's deepest questions in a way naturalism cannot.
Your argument assumes that gaps in our knowledge require a divine explanation, but history shows that these gaps often close with scientific progress. The Big Bang, fine-tuning, and morality can all be explored through naturalistic frameworks without invoking a deity. Belief in God is a matter of personal faith, not universal evidence. Rational inquiry, grounded in evidence and science, is the best path to understanding reality without introducing unnecessary assumptions about the supernatural.
But science, as powerful as it is, cannot answer why there is something rather than nothing, or why the universe operates on intelligible principles. These questions transcend empirical study and point to a cause that is both necessary and purposeful. God offers a coherent explanation that integrates reason, experience, and the evidence of creation. A world without God risks losing its foundation for objective meaning and value.
Meaning and value don't depend on a divine being. They emerge from our relationships, experiences, and aspirations. The quest for knowledge through science has consistently provided answers without resorting to the supernatural. The universe's mysteries inspire us to keep exploring, not to settle for explanations that cannot be tested or verified. Skepticism and curiosity, rather than certainty about God's existence, drive humanity forward.
Skepticism is healthy, but rejecting the idea of God because it cannot be empirically tested ignores the broader scope of evidence: philosophical, experiential, and historical. Faith in God complements reason and offers a comprehensive worldview that addresses both the seen and unseen aspects of reality. The existence of God remains the most plausible explanation for the universe's origin, design, and moral order.
While your points reflect deeply held beliefs, they rely on assumptions that are not universally convincing. Science, reason, and human ingenuity provide tools to explore the unknown without invoking the supernatural. Instead of attributing mysteries to God, we should embrace uncertainty as an opportunity for discovery. Belief in God is not necessary to lead a meaningful, ethical, and inquisitive life. The universe is awe-inspiring on its own terms.